Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Indie Club Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Kozacinski. Today, I'm joined by my friend Michael Anderson, who I've known for a couple of years now. Michael is an entrepreneur and a best-selling author of an amazing book called Soul-Centered Leadership. And I invited Michael today to talk about a bit of his business, his journey he took in his career. He has an awesome story, and I'm looking forward to see everything that he's going to share today. So I'm going to let Michael introduce himself. Hi, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. We, oddly enough, we lived in Croatia together. That's where we met at a co-working place, which was a lot of fun. I have some fond memories of that place. So now we both live in London.
Exactly. Before we start, actually, I'm going to ask you a question right off the bat. How did you end up in Croatia?
Well, I'll try to give. Well, there's not a short answer to that. So I was in the U.S. and I sold all my stuff and I did the nomad thing, and so it was one of the. So I just literally lived without a house, and I did that in my mid 40s, and I think that's common to do when you're maybe in your 20s or your early 30s. But I was a bit older, and so my work took me to places, and I stayed with some friends and family. And then I was doing the true nomad thing where I'd spend like a week in a city and go to another city. And I don't really go out, I don't really party or drink a lot anymore. So I found it very isolating because I would stay like in an Airbnb and by myself. And so it was very lonely for me. And so I realized after a couple months of that I didn't want to spend, a long period of time like that. So I really wanted to find like a home base in Europe. So I wanted to find a place that spoke decent English, which rules out like Spain and Italy, some of those places, and was also somewhat inexpensive because go to London or Paris and living in short-term housing is just massively expensive and eating out all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been difficult, and so that leaves, I guess, in a way, Easternish Europe, and my ancestors are from Croatia, so I figured, yeah, why not Zagreb, and so that brought me there, and it was a really great experience. And Croatia is a lovely country. I'm sure, Tom, as we talked about, it has some great aspects and some frustrating aspects, but it's really, I met great people there, and it was a really great. And if anybody out there is listening, Croatia is a great place to go for a weekend, a week, or a month. It's great food, great people, great coastline for sure.
I'm going to agree on that, and I will not go into the politics of Croatia because then this talk is going to go way in the wrong direction that I want to take it.
Well, it's like people in the UK and the US, they're like, we have crazy politics. I'm like, no.
You have it easy. Yeah, but okay, cool. You said you sold your stuff and went nomad, and I'm going to circle back to that. But before you sold your stuff, how did you come to having stuff to sold? So let's start with there. I know you started a couple of companies, so let's start with that.
Yeah, I was always geeky. My dad bought me back then it was an Apple II clone back in, I don't know, probably like 85 when I was like 14 or 15. And I taught myself how to program in my basement. And I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, back in the States, in the United States, in the eastern part, sort of by New York. And then I moved to California because my cousin was out there. I had a really crappy job, and my cousin called me. I was like 24. He's like, Mike, what are you doing in Pittsburgh? And he was in San Diego, and I'm like, life's okay. I got this crappy job. And he's like, if you have a crappy job, why not have a crappy job in California instead of Pittsburgh? And I'm like, all right, good logic. I'm out of here. So I packed up and drove across the states, and I got started in what's called ERP, like Microsoft Dynamics and SAP. I was started as a programmer and worked my way up the corporate ladder. A company, we got bought by a larger company. They moved me to the UK, and then I moved to Copenhagen, Denmark, and then I moved to Singapore in charge of Southeast Asia as I was climbing up the corporate ladder. Moved back to the States and started my first company, then my second company. And I'm like a really good technical guy. Back then I was really up on all the technologies. I was really driven. And we had some success based on basically my hard work. But then as we got a couple of people, I realized I was not a good leader. And we started to have a lot of problems in the company and me personally because of my lack of leadership. And so then I went and yeah, I taught myself. I taught myself. There's a couple things I did to really get good at leadership. Um, and that's when my companies really started to flourish. I mean, we were number one best place to work in the city. We were in California. We were on the Inc. 5000 list a couple of years in a row. I was Social Entrepreneur of the Year, um, and that was really fulfilling for me. And then now what I do is I teach people that same type of leadership, that same type of positive, empowering leadership to other people in technology. That's what I do now.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to that. I want to ask you, what made you do the change from climbing the corporate ladder and like being really good at it, and then saying, okay, I'm going to stop with this now, and I'm going to start something on my own? Like, what made you make a switch?
Yeah, I think I was always. I know I was always entrepreneurial, meaning I'm not gonna lie, I'm smart and I'm driven, but I could have done a lot better if I would have not been. And Tom, this isn't like you at all. If I wouldn't be so stubborn and have to do things my own way.
Yeah, that's not it, man. Like, yeah, no, sure.
um, and so I got by honestly on just really hard work and intelligence because I was looking back. There was a lot of situations or bosses I had where if I would have just been a little more calmer or less troublemaker-ish, my career would have risen quicker.
So problems with authority.
Problems with authority, yeah, unless it's me, unless I'm the authority, there's a problem, right?
I see some similarities here, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what? Um, and you know, I moved back from in Singapore when I was in Southeast Asia. It's a longer story to that, but I quit my job because they didn't pay me some commissions, and then I moved back to California. And a lot of my old customers that I used to do programming with found out I was back, and they weren't getting good service, and so they're like, "Hey, I'd love you to come, you know, fix our systems." And were big projects, so I was getting paid. They're like, "How much do you charge?" And I used to, and I did some consulting for another company when I was there, but then I hooked up with these old customers, and the company used to charge me out at 200 an hour, and they're like, "How much do you charge?" I'm like, $200 an hour, and they're like, "Can you come in next week?" I'm like, "Yes."
Yes, I'm there.
And it's funny because you know, for me, and I think a lot of us in this, sometimes we have issues sometimes giving large amounts for our hourly rate or projects and things, and it's like, because I've had that happen to me before, and it's luckily I had that number just to go back and start with.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
said yes.
absolutely.
Honestly, it's a shitload of money. $200 an hour.
Hell yes. I had a talk a couple of days ago. One of my friends who's a designer, he reached out and he has some contracting work coming his way. And he's asked, like, how much should I charge? Like, he didn't know how to put like a proper price because, like, oh, he currently lives in Croatia, but he wants to charge Western prices. But how he's trying to gauge his quality and his hourly rate and has no idea what the starting point should be. So I gave him the same formula I took when I just started out freelancing years ago. It was like, just take the number of hours that you actually want to work in the year, or like let's say you want to work 10 months and you want to work 6 hours per working day. So that's like total of 40 weeks plus times 6, right? So, and then yet just take that number, divide the number of yearly income you want to have, divide by that number, that will be your hourly rate, and then add savings to that and add any like expenses and your life, whatever, like just come up to a number and then try to gauge from there. And it just seemed like a simple formula to follow. But how do you grow from there? Like, what would be your advice how to go from that like basic formula, and then when does your price start to rise? Is it like years of experience, clients, combination of both? What adds more to your price?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I like the Tom economics, backing that out. And you know, to me, it mostly matters on the perception of who you're talking to, and you know, because a customer is probably going to come to you with a certain number in their head, and so I think it's important for you because like some people, if you're like a good Java developer and you live in Croatia, they might be paying the going rate that they would pay somebody in the UK. Other people might be, going to a country like Croatia to save some money. So it's really the mindset of the company and the client mean a lot. If people are listening out there and they want to make more money, I would really look at it. Like somebody asked me if they were getting into technology now, like they were younger, what would they do? I would say just really jump on something that is going to get bigger. Machine learning almost. I mean, that's still going to grow, but like nanotechnology, like artificial intelligence, and just freaking write a blog for a year, and just by writing the blog, you're going to know about it, and people are going to start following you. It's the same thing with like, if you learn C++ or Java, you're going to be in demand, but you're not going to be that much in demand, right? Because there's a lot of people out there doing it. You're never going to make $500 an hour doing it. But if you pick a technology that catches on, or that's going to catch on, some sort of, machine learning, type of niche, and that's what people pay for is experience with hard to find in demand type of things. Like if you were a Java programmer, 10 years ago, you'd probably were making tons of money, but now it's commoditized. So you really want to position yourself into something that's going to grow. When I moved to San Diego, Qualcomm, people don't know Qualcomm. They make most of the chips in phones. They were small. And I said to this guy, I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a job. He's like, dude, you should just go get a job at Qualcomm. And if you don't know wireless, they're just hiring people left and right. And if I would have got a job back then, I probably would have a couple $1 million in stock options, because it grew probably 100 or 200 times, 1,000 times. It's one of the bigger companies in the States now. So
yeah, I had their dial-up modem, I think, when years ago they were selling modems. Yeah, so but that was back then. But okay, yeah, cool. Thanks. Let's. I don't want to go into one direction because I know that you don't have a lot of time, and I want to cover as much as I can while I have you here. And hopefully, if this goes well, we can do another episode. But I want to circle back to your leadership, because you said that when you started your company, and it was all well, but then you realized that you lacked certain leadership skills, and that it led to a certain problems, right? So first, how did you identify that it was your problem? Because I know a lot of people have issues with saying I'm the problem, and it takes I think it takes character to say I'm the problem here, not everybody else, because people tend to play the blame game a lot. And then how do you go from there to I'm gonna learn this thing, and then you take it as the one step further and said, okay, now I'm gonna teach it.
Well, it's an interesting question, because I've been thinking about it. Like, what was my life really like back then? And back then, I was growing 2 or 3 companies at the time. In total, I started 3, and they sort of overlapped. And I just remember like there would need to be stuff that gets done, and I was thinking so tactically. So like I thought leadership was a bunch of tasks came in, and I would just give them out to everybody. And if they didn't get them done as quick or as well as I thought, I would just get frustrated with them and angry. Not yelling at them, but sometimes yelling, but it would just be frustrating. And I didn't know anything about communication. I didn't know people communicated in different ways. I didn't know how to motivate and inspire. I just thought people were like a cogs. I was treating it like a programming thing. Like there's different processors, everything got to get allocated and then get back, and I got to organize. Being a manager, total manager. I'm a good manager. I got the details. I got spreadsheets, all these other things, but I definitely wasn't getting the most out of people. And then what happened is, when I started, I had friends in the industry, so I would hire those friends, and so we were all fairly tight. People normally that I knew for years and were very good, experienced people. But then, people would work on half a project and quit, or just quit altogether. I had to hire people from that I didn't know, and I just realized that. Starting to have problems with customers. It's like the more people we add, the more things we get, the worse. I don't even know, like our culture would get, because I'm not even sure I knew what a culture was back then, So, and there was really no culture. It was just a bunch of people that I knew thrown together without. I'm like, I don't want job titles. I don't want anybody reporting to anybody, which is cool when you're 2 people. But when you're 6 people or 10 people or 15 people, they're like, well, who do I go to get my how much vacation pay do I get? How much sick time? Who do I go to when my laptop doesn't work? I'm like, just fix it yourself. I don't care. It's like, but then they would choose something. I'd be like, that's not what I wanted you to do. And they're like, well, F you, like, of course it was frustrating to them. There was no certainty. There was no consistency. I was all over the place. There was no, much less, there's no roles, responsibilities, which again, when you build a company, people want to do a good job. So as a leader, you really got to tell them, this is what you got to do. It's like if you had a, soccer football team and you're like, just go play every position you want to play. Nobody plays goal or defense. Everybody's trying to put the ball in the net and you lose by 100. So it's doesn't work. And it was stressful. It was massively stressful because we were signing up clients. The clients weren't happy, even though there was a bunch of experienced people on there. And I just took on all this responsibility, and I felt so isolated and alone because I didn't have anybody to talk to. Finally, I joined some peer groups of other business owners, and so I was finding what I didn't have. And a guy named Ron Harrell, who's still a really good friend of mine, he was like, he got to know me a little bit, and he just laughed. He's like, Michael, what made you a good programmer has almost nothing to do with what making you a good leader. I'm like, well, what do you know? What do you mean? It's like, well, you work really hard to overcome problems, because it's just what I did. If I had a problem, I would stay up all night, all weekend. It would get done. But you can't do that with leadership. You can't do that with a conversation or relationship. You get one shot at it. And I was trying so hard to be, I also back then didn't understand myself. I didn't know myself. I was very ego driven. So I would really care what people thought of me, and I really cared what how I presented to people. I didn't want to show any weakness, which really created a disconnect between me and everybody else. I didn't have what I know now as emotional intelligence, and it really in a way, like, I boxed myself off, because the more stressed I got, the more isolated I made myself. And the worse I would communicate. So I started micromanaging. I started to get short with people, and then it all got worse and worse.
Yeah. So what was the breaking point between saying, okay, I'm going to get rid of my companies and I'm going to go nomad and just travel?
Well, there was a couple steps between that, because what happened is I started to get into some alcohol and some hard drugs, which is never a good long-term solution. It works really good for the next couple hours, but after that, it really sucks.
And it's expensive.
It's expensive, yes. And so I had some substance abuse issues. And then I had a business partner, a guy who was a key employee I get some equity to. We got into a disagreement, and he ended up hitting me, assaulting me in my office, and that led to, it's not that he hurt, but we basically got into a fight, and so I had to file a restraining order and a lawsuit, and I got into this big business lawsuit, and I almost lost everything. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. He started a competitor. I thought I was going to lose everything, and it really made me realize, like, what am I doing here? And that's when I really decided to change. I really started I really decided that I'm going to learn how to lead people and how to, like, lead myself, because I knew there was something that was, I don't know, broken, a bit the wrong word, but it's like I wasn't, even without the lawsuit, I wasn't enjoying my life because there was just a lot of chaos. It wasn't fun. I was making good money, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And that's when I got some coaches. I got this really unique master's in psychology, and I really worked on myself a lot, Tom. And for years and years, I worked on myself. And I know you went through one of the courses. You were exposed to some of the things I really worked on myself. And the funny thing is, it's like, if I could explain this, like, I got more comfortable with myself in those years, because the more I got comfortable with myself, and what I mean by that is not so judgmental about myself. I learned to accept myself, and by doing that, I became a really great leader, because I was connecting with people, because I would admit when I'm wrong, or I would really take time to listen to people. And that was the game changer. And it's like, I wouldn't be afraid to make mistakes, because I know that I'm a risk taker and I make mistakes. So if I make a mistake, I just got this great type of resilience, which people were really attracted to, because as a leader, you have to take a lot of risks. And they were like, you know, hey, if we succeed or fail, that's all right, because they just knew that we were going to get to the next step. Because I always had that faith in myself and my people. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and so I realized that after spending 18 years in accounting software, I know what people out there are thinking. You're in accounting software. There's nothing more sexy than when you mix accounting and software. And I know I was a bit of a rock star. So many chicks and everything, just like but yeah, I really enjoy business and strategy and leadership. And so I sold my software companies, and that's what I do now. I teach leaders at companies like Uber and Microsoft and Salesforce and things. And then when I was in San Diego, I was there for a long time, and then I was like, I felt antsy, like I needed to travel again. And after being there 8 years, it's like it was my second stint there of 8 years, with the break in between. I just realized that I had the travel bug again. So I put my stuff in storage and went traveling. And then after like 4 months, I realized I don't need any of that crap. It was a very Buddhist moment. And so I sold. I get a great picture of myself. I can maybe email it to you. You can put it up on the notes or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to write it down right away.
It's me with like two big suitcases, two small suitcases, a backpack, and 2 boxes of files. That's everything I owned in my life. And my mom took care of some of the files for me and some of the other stuff. And I just went and it's funny because when I started traveling around internationally, I had 2 big suitcases and then my backpack. And after a couple of years of this, I was down to like a laptop backpack and a carry-on, and I was like so proud that I could just live forever out of a carry-on in a backpack.
Yeah, I love that. You're one of the few people that I know that travel like this, and now wherever I travel, everything that fits in my backpack is everything that I'm carrying. I'm not taking I never have checked baggage. It's always whatever I can carry on my back and done. And it's the easiest way to travel.
Yes. As long as you're not going anywhere cold, because when you get to go cold, you got to bring those. So it's like you wear all the warm stuff on you, so it's like you get all hot on the plane.
I have a trick. About that. I went to Siberia in November last year. So November in Siberia is cold as balls. And I took that really thin but thermal layer that skiers wear and bikers. It's like spandex, but keeps the heat and keeps the cold air doesn't flow through that. So I put that on me as a base layer, and then basically you can wear your regular clothes, and then you don't have to wear all of this stuff. Otherwise, I would have to take that big suitcase, but I managed to avoid that as well. So if it works for Siberia, it mostly works for everything, everywhere where you go on business or like a casual tourist not climbing Mount Everest.
I can almost guarantee you I will never go anywhere colder than Siberia in November.
Exactly. I'm when we were landing on this snow-covered airstrip in Siberia, I was like, do I really need this in my life? Why am I here? And then I remembered, oh, Google is paying for the conference. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, but yeah, I could have gone in summer. I would next time if I ever go back to Siberia, it's gonna be summer for sure.
Well, they brought you up to speak at a conference, didn't they?
What?
They brought you up to speak at a conference, didn't Google or Microsoft bring you up?
Yeah, it was a Google Dev conference, Google developers, and I was speaking on freelancing. And basically, I like to put it in a way like I speak on developers conferences, so I can open different perspectives to people who never considered freelancing as a career option. And I don't want to speak to designers because I'm a designer. I know a lot of designers and they are great, but I kind of feel that this is the type of people that I can't teach stuff. Then they already know a lot of stuff that I do. So it kind of, yeah, I'm covering just a small part of of things. And with developers, I can like share from my perspective because I think developers and designers need to work together. So it's kind of always, it's a good meld of worlds. And I love speaking about freelancing and just having people open their eyes to these possibilities that freelancing offers. So this is actually one of the things I want to come back to. You said that you're a person that takes risks. And when I speak in these events and then people come come to me after and say they have questions around how do I know that I will get paid? Or you can see that a lot of people are very risk averse and they don't want to risk basically not having any money. And if you go to freelance, you're sacrificing this certainty that the paycheck will come at the end of the month. And a lot of people struggle with this, where how can they make that step? And it just doesn't feel natural to a lot of people, and it doesn't feel easy. So what would be your advice saying to those people, like, to make that step and actually step away from this 9 to 5 job and going to freelancing and take a bet on themselves?
Wow, that's a great point. I've been basically a consultant most of my life. I was an employee for a while, but I worked in a consulting organization, so I've always just had so much flexibility and freedom. And to me, it'd be great. There's so many people I know that have a job and they would make literally twice as much being a freelancer. I'm like, why don't you just quit and do this? You got all these contacts. You're really in demand. You'd make so much money. And they're like, no, I just want to stay here. What if I do this? Basically as a freelancer, you can almost work like half the hours and make more than you were before on your own terms. And of course, there's trade-offs and everything with a whole bunch of things. As a freelancer, there's some things you can control and some things you can't. Like, for example, you can control who you work for, and you want to, if you work for a startup internet company, or whatever e-commerce company, that may be a little risky, right? Because there may be a cash flow problem. If you work for a larger company, you talk to some other people that are doing freelancing for them, you can almost guarantee that you're going to get the money when they say they're going to pay you. Make sure you're talking to the people that in the department that pay you, not just the people that need to hire you. You want to get some confirmation, maybe talk to one or two other people about it. But the chances of you working for an established company and not getting paid are fairly slim, I would think.
Yeah.
And you really got to take it in. And that's Tom. I think that's why these talks and some of the content you put out are really great, because they're, if you do have a family and kids or rent payment or mortgage, you really want to take that into account. And there's, there are some things that you want to really make sure you look at and understand. But if you, to me, there's just so many benefits to it about the freedom and the flexibility and working on new projects and things. Just to me that's fun. But again, I like change. If people are totally risk averse and don't like change, it may not be for you.
Absolutely. I always say it's not for everybody. I know a lot of success stories from people that I met during on some of the conferences, and there's one girl I met a couple of years back. She came to my talk, and after the talk, she asked me, how do I become a freelancer? And to be honest, I don't have a simple short answer like this is how you do it. It's very you just quit your job, lose the safety net, and you just go. And she said, like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'll let you know when I succeed. And I hear this from a lot of people. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Let me know when you kick off your business, and I'm going to be sure to send you some clients your way that are going to need your services. And sure enough, like 6 months later, she sent me an email. Hey, I have an agency. I'm working on this, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for inspiring me. And I was just blown away. I just couldn't believe it. And she's still working, going strong, does some amazing work, builds websites and branding for some amazing clients. And it just started from, I have an idea, and she just took a straight line from A to B and just did it. And I was like, wow, you should be like up here talking. And it kind of sounds, like a fun little story that I get to tell, but it really is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. And I try to say this to people, but I don't know how to convince them that it's true. I wish I could make them just try for a month. Like, I'm going to cover your life costs. Just try for a month. And I know that you will never go back, because this freedom that you gain and just the life kind of just grows by a couple of sizes. Just this is how I felt.
I know. To me, it's so easy. I get the same thing. People say, "How do I get into it?" I'm like, just call like 5-year-old clients or / coworkers and just say, "Hey, what's going on? I was thinking about you. By the way, I may go solo. of course, if it's not taken, if you're not legally bound or contract or morally by the company you're working for, if it's not their client, you don't want to steal the clients of the company.
Of course, yeah.
The current company introduced you to. But if you've been doing this for 10 years or so, go back and think of some old contacts you've had great relationships with. There's a good chance they need quality people, and just reach out and drop them a line. Say, hey, just think about you. Let's do a 10-minute call. Call them up. God forbid, call them up. Just call them. Don't think about it. Don't send an email. Just literally call them. Say, hey, I was thinking about you. I just want to see how things are going. Chit chat for 5 or 10 minutes. Catch up, and then say, hey, I was thinking about going solo. Do you know anybody, or do you need any help? I mean, it's a legit question. If you called me up and said, hey, you do this, I'm like, hey, what's going on? You're like, yeah, between projects, let me know if you know of any, designers. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm happy to help. I want people to tell me when they're looking for projects. I mean, some people are like, I don't want to ask. Why? Like, if I was looking for a lawnmower, wouldn't you want me to tell you I'm looking for a lawnmower? So if you had a lawnmower, you can help me with the lawnmower? Like,
exactly. There's a Croatian saying, I need to translate this in English, like one that asks never wonders. I think that would be the proper. Like, you can never get lost if you ask questions. So I think that just is something that my grandma used to say. But yeah, it makes sense. If you have a question, ask, and people are always more than happy to help. And I know you are, and thank you for that. I appreciate every time every time I reach out, you reach back, and I just want to make sure that people know that this works for most everybody in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And especially if you're very good, you form relationships on project teams, and the people really remember you and hold you in high esteem. And if you worked on projects with other freelancers, maybe you weren't a freelancer, call those other freelancers. I mean, it's literally just, if you're thinking about doing this, take an hour, block an hour out on your calendar, and spend the first half hour calling people and the next half hour emailing people. And if you do that 3 weeks in a row, you spend 1 hour 3 weeks in a row, you either will have enough work for you, or you're not as good as you think you are.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't believe in themselves, and I think they should. So one of the things that I always suggest to people is to go to meetups, go to find people in similar fields, people with common interests, and just go and meet people. And it's just hard not to meet people that will have a place for you if you're trying to find where you can put your skill to use. And just doing this a couple of weeks ago, I met a great guy that I would never meet if I didn't do, Slack communities and Facebook and all that stuff. And I meet people that introduce me to people. And I met a guy that's a designer and art director, and we did a live podcast too. And he's this brilliant designer and all over the map. And we had like an introductory 15-minute call so we can get to know each other before we do the podcast. And it turned into an hour and a half talk. And I felt like I knew this guy for years. And this is one of the reasons why I love these, communities that gather around certain subjects that I like, because I always find one person I can talk to and just have a lot in common, and we can always find a way to build something together, do something together. I think that's a great approach.
Yeah. Something came to my mind. I forgot what I was going to say. I can't remember. Anyway, it'll come to me.
Communities.
Which you already. Oh, here's what I was going to ask. First of all, I appreciate you doing the community and doing this. And I was on that other call, and I think you really add a lot of value. And I don't really find a lot of people talking about exactly this. I think that's really important. With all the layoffs, and even though tech people are in big demand, have you, Tom, personally, are more people looking, maybe they got laid off or furloughed or whatever, are they jumping into your community, or are you getting the questions, how do I freelance? Or are there less people or more people? What are you seeing?
So there's a two-part answer to this question. One is a lot of people that are either getting laid off or getting furloughed not everybody has the same culture of working from home and working remotely like some of us have that have been freelancing, you have been accountable for yourself for so long, it just becomes a second nature. And then there are a lot of people who are just accustomed to going to the office. So structure of their work from home is a little bit different than people who are working from home or working for themselves for quite some time now. So it's been a sudden change for a lot of people. So a lot of people are now trying to just find a way how to actually work from home in a way that will still be productive, still work with their team. And a lot of companies who are hiring don't have the proper onboarding process remote, because they're like, oh, we are now remote, and here's an email from this person, and have a call with this person, and just hop on a Zoom with this, and it's just kind of, people are still trying to uh, learn how to work remotely. It's just not second nature for a lot of people. And then a lot of people got lost the human touch in that they had in the office, because it's they lost that water cooler talk and kitchen talk. They say, hey, how are you? Bumping it for people in the corridors. And now when they jump on in a new company that's also remote, they don't know how to act. There's no this thing that happens organically in the workplace. So a lot of people are suffering from this. Oh, we are now working remotely, but there's no connections being made on a personal level that usually happen. And companies that are not remotely just don't know how to grow that organically. So I think this is where you're struggling. And the other part is people that did get laid off are looking for jobs. There are people who are even, some of the people are cutting down on their rates, saying like, oh, it will be easier to get a new job, because if they go cheaper, dumping on prices, thinking they will be more employable, and it's not working for them. And they're like, oh, I cut down my prices for 30%. Like, why? Did your quality went down? Did you, like, what happened? I'm trying to understand why but you're not going to be more employable if you cut down on your rates suddenly just because you're sitting at home. If nothing, your rates should stay the same. And it boggles me. So I had a couple of calls last couple of weeks with people who are kind of trying to find their place. And even with one of the had a call with the CTO of one development company. They want to be competitive in the market, but they can't offer high salaries on the market, because they just can't. Doesn't matter. But he asked me like, how can we be more competitive as a employer for developers? So we talked for a couple hours and came to the conclusion that they should cut it down to 4-day work week instead of a 5-day work week, which works for them, because are the people are getting burned out if they are like 5 hours, 8 hours a day for 5 days working, developing hardcore. Their people started to get burned out. So it's okay, how about we cut down to 4 hours? And they tried that, kept the productivity the same. So cut down one day, kept the same productivity. And they said, okay, from what we learned during the Corona time, now they're going to work from one day will be from home, mandatory, and out of 3 others, there would be optional working day from home, and one day they're not working. So basically, they kept the salaries, but their staff is way more happier. They did a survey, and it was like 95%. Everybody said like, yes, this is way better, way amazing. And I'm sure that people will not change company for a couple $100 just based on this, because you get like 50 something additional free days a year for basically the same salary. Who does that?
That's cool. That's a real good story. Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies should think in that direction. But yeah, so okay, I wanna ask you. I know that you're doing your workshops on leadership. Can you tell me a little bit more just about that? How are you exactly helping people become better leaders? What do you do? And tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. And I specifically work with technology people that want, maybe they're a team lead, maybe they're a CTO, maybe they're a middle manager, maybe they're support manager, testing manager, maybe they are an IT director. And the thing is, when we're, most of us technical people, when we work our way up the management and leadership, we again, we rely on what got us there. So we're very tactical. We don't think strategically. oftentimes we get in, we have this imposter syndrome. So when all of a sudden we're in a board meeting or a high level meeting or a customer meeting, and it's like we want to hide. We don't want them to like call on us. We don't want to say anything. And then when we are called on, we don't want to look stupid. So we either just totally muff up the answer, even though we know the answer, or we give this long technical answer where, and so you see everybody's eyes glaze over. And half the time when we're doing this, we know halfway through the answer, we're like, oh, I lost them already. And so we're like, blah, 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 blah. And as people are leaving the meeting, they're like, Michael, whoever, just didn't show up as the strategic leader. So, um, and it's how to motivate and inspire a team. Because just because you're, for example, a software tester doesn't mean the software testers you're gonna motivate and inspire them. Just because you are something doesn't mean you're going to inspire that. And in fact, you don't even need to know. I had people working for me in marketing people, salespeople in areas that I didn't know about. So that's a fallacy that you have to know about people that you're going to lead. But it takes confidence, it takes leadership skills, it takes a lot of these different tools and techniques to get there. It's about having a vision. It's about communicating that. It's about people. A lot of it's about stepping out of your comfort zone and being able to delegate, putting the right controls in place. A lot of people either give everything over and wonder why it's not done correctly, or they keep everything together. They keep everything too close, and then they never delegate, and then they're stressed, and then they have too much to do by themselves. And it causes so much angst. And people, when they get promoted into leadership, they were used to being a really good technical person, and all of a sudden now they're maybe not doing that well, or missing targets, or they don't have the respect of their team or their boss or their peers. And so it really starts messing with their confidence, and then they get the negative self-talk, and then it all goes downhill from there. Then they don't communicate well with their family at home, and their spouses feel disconnected, and then they're not spending time with their kids. So I've seen it all, and I specifically help technical people get into management and leadership, and it's really needed because nobody teaches us leadership skills. They teach us some management, but nobody teaches us how to go, step into these strategic meetings and act like a board member. So, good.
Yeah, makes sense. So, I will try to wrap this up because I know that you said that you can't spend more than an hour, but I want you just to tell people about your book because I read the book. I think the book is great. It helped me, and I just want to ask you a little bit more about the book. How did it actually came? How did you came to writing the book? And where did it actually take you? I know a lot of people are thinking about writing a book. I'm thinking about writing the book. So, how did it actually came to be, and what did it actually change?
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. Let me throw out. There's two books, and the first book was a bit shorter. And what happened is writing a book's not that hard. You just got to get over the fact that writing a book's not that hard. Literally, I was traveling a lot, so every time I got on a plane, I would open up my laptop and write until I didn't feel like writing, and then in like 3 months, I had a first draft. And so it doesn't take, if you type fairly quickly, and most of us do, and you know what you're talking about, literally it probably takes 40 to 80 hours to do a first draft of a thin book. And your first book, make it a thin book. Don't write 5,000 pages. Make your first book your experiment, right? And so I did that, and then I also got a book coach. So if you get somebody that's written a book before to coach you, you can, a couple of this is, how much money do you want to spend on it? I mean, because you could literally do it for no money, or you could get probably a book coach, a professional. I would encourage some people to spend about $500 or £500 on getting a professional editor, getting a professional cover, getting it the inside of it formatted correctly. So you can, $500 would go a long way to getting a professional book out there, or you can spend a couple grand and getting getting a marketing person, blah 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 blah. So but it's just for like getting your ass down on the seat and your fingers on the keyboard and type. I mean, there's no magic formula, and you could literally, if it was done now, Tom, you could have it on Amazon tomorrow. It's create space. It's like you upload it, you format it. It's really, really simple. So there's a lot of mystique around a book that really should be burst a bit. You can go to freaking Fiverr and get a cover done nowadays.
Yeah.
And but my second book is Soul Centered Leadership, and it's really how to lead from your heart and your soul, and how to really a lot. Everybody I've ever basically met in my life, they want to do a good job. They want to have success personally, but also have their team have success. So it's really how do you tap into that, and it's a tool set for doing that, and it's got a general type of spirituality associated with it, nothing to do with God or religion. We don't want to mess around with that. Everybody's got their own beliefs or non-beliefs, but it's just a really uplifting way to look at how we can create something and do something great for ourselves and everybody else. But I think great leadership, it's like some people have something about, I used to, sometimes I still do, about like authority and leadership. And some people have it about religion, and some people have it about like salespeople. There's people that like are members of religion, and it really is a positive thing. And there's others that are a negative thing. There's really great salespeople out there, or you've been through really great sales experiences, and you've been through negative ones. And same with leadership. There's great leaders out there, and there's poor leaders out there. And I think some people have a negative view of what leadership can be or management can be. But when you do work for a great leader, it's very empowering to you. And I've learned a lot by working with great leaders and for great leaders and being led by great leaders. And people want to be led. If we have a project together, and when Tom was setting me up with this podcast, I want Tom to take leadership of this. Here's when we're going to start. Here's the format of it. How much do you want to? He walked me through everything, which is good. If he didn't, this would not be successful. So leadership shows up everywhere, and we don't get anywhere without leadership. If we were all wanted to take a bus ride somewhere and we just voted on it, we would never ever get anywhere. It's like sometimes somebody's got to say, we're not going to Niagara Falls, we're going to Florida, right? Otherwise, we just drive in circles. So
exactly. Would you say that your perspective of you from your clients change once you say, like, now that you have a book? Did it change in any way in your business? Did it change your business?
For sure. And I do a lot of speaking, and in the speaking circles, we say a book is the most expensive, most effective business card you'll ever have in your life. And the funny thing is, not nobody, this is an exaggeration, nobody's going to read your book, but most people are going to find you have a book. It's amazing you have a book. They're going to buy the book. They might glance through the book. Some people are going to read it and some people aren't, but they're going to, if you know something about, whatever it is, Java or testing, I keep going back to them because they're top of my mind. Write a book on it. Why not? If you say, who are you to write a book? Who aren't you to write a book? What you don't know about this stuff? And people probably know the stuff already, but that's not who the book's written for. You know what I mean? It's like nothing written nowadays is new. I mean, it's been done for a lot of it for hundreds of years. So don't worry about it. It's just your take on it, and you're another outlet for it. So don't think your book has to be a masterpiece or something that's never been done before. It's just to support you and your message. So,
yeah. Cool. Maybe I'll write. How did you say, Tomonomics? Or
Tomonomics. I like it. You got to give me a percentage for. I like that.
I'm gonna write it out. Tomonomics. Yeah. If nothing, I'm gonna write a Medium post on it.
Yeah.
Right sure. I just wanna stop answering the same question in messages all over. I'm just gonna write a article and just point everybody the same link. Just like, there it is. This is how I do it, because it was a big mystery. So yeah, I'm just gonna solve the problem for freelancers with my Tomonomics.
Well, what some people do is, like, you got this podcast series or blog. Some people just take all of them and hire somebody to put them all together into a book. I mean,
yeah. I don't. Well, to be honest, I started this podcast thing because I like talking to interesting people, and why not just record it? I would talk to you anyway. And
we should be eating ribs though now. We should be eating ribs.
Oh man, don't even mention the ribs. I'm aching for those ribs back in Croatia. So don't know when that's going to happen. Hopefully this year. But yeah, we should do that. At least when the lockdown is done, you can come over to my place and I'm going to try to make ribs. So we'll try.
Absolutely.
But yes, that's the idea. I just yeah, I'll record these as much as I can, see where it takes me, and hopefully just learn something. And if anybody gets any use from our conversations and from whatever I'm speaking with people, I'm just gonna chalk that up to win, and that's it.
Cool. My last piece of advice: don't buy XCOM 2, because right now I bought XCOM 2, and I'm probably a couple missions in. It's all I can think about and all I want to do. I don't want to do any freaking work.
I understand, and I'm not buying it. And my friend suggested he should send me a trailer for the game called Torment Tides of Numenera, and it's a continuation of the Torment series. So I see the trailer, and I was like, oh man, I love this. I would love this game because I love those turn-based RPG games. And I didn't want to buy it because I have work to do, and I just don't have enough time to dedicate to this game. And he asked me a couple of days ago, like, hey, did you buy the game? I was like, no, I'm working. I'm being a responsible adult, not buying the game because I want to concentrate on my work and my whatever I'm doing. And he said, okay, I'm sorry, and sent me the key and said happy early birthday present. And I was like, shit. And now I have this big icon on my desktop just looking at me. And I think I'm going to sink entire next weekend into it.
Which one is it? Is that the ninja one you showed me?
No. This is a whole different. This is similar to Baldur's Gate series, if you remember those, where it's like basically very story-driven RPG, and all of your whatever action you take, it kind of takes in a different direction. So
you finished Witcher 3, so you're my hero. I'm like, man, you probably could have learned Russian and Japanese in that time, but.
Well, I could have, but I was just slaying monsters and listening to Slavic folk music, which kind of. But it's one thing that was good during this lockdown is time to play games, and my wife is working anyway, so while she was working, I had time to play games. So yeah, but so at least something good came out of this lockdown. Finishing Witcher. I know now how it ends. I'm not going to spoil it for everybody, but it's well worth the play. Well worth the 40, 50 hours of sinking into the game. Anyway, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it, and I hope we're going to have a chance to do an episode 2. I want to say thank you to everybody who listened our episode to the end. I hope you got some value out of it. I'm going to link everything related to Michael and what we discussed in the show notes. If anybody has any questions either for Michael or for myself, there will be a link to all of our socials there. I'm sure Michael is more than happy to answer some of those just like me. And whoever wants to join our Slack community is more than welcome to. And that's it. Hope to see you again soon. So
thanks for having me on. Thanks so much.
And yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.